Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. We are back once again with another edition of Beyond Call Cover Story. I know. It is the beginning of what this world defines as a new year, and you have not seen us in a while. But by Allah's grace and permission, we are back. We are back. We're back. And one of the before I bring Brother Naba up is I've heard people say, that man, we missed the show, and man, when y'all coming back, and all those types of things. But I don't necessarily see the feedback and all of those things. So we're going to be looking forward to striving to be a lot more consistent, but we want to hear from you and see you as well. So once again, of course, let me bring up my brother. We are this week on volume number 41, number 14, January 11th, 2022 is the date on the paper. America's Undoing, America's Naba, why this cover story? Welcome back.
Well, first of all, assalamu alaikum, Brother Troy. It's great to be back. We're looking to kind of start the new year and to see what we can do and see what we can accomplish. America's undoing, America's unraveling. I think there's probably no story that's more important in terms of what's happening in the country today. And what we're focused on is the continued problem of political division, social division, and what that will literally mean for the political, social institutions of the United States. And there's an essential question being asked by generals, former U.S. generals, being asked by scholars, being asked by political leaders, social scientists. And that fundamental question is, can America survive as she is as a quote-unquote democracy? But there are many people who fear a coup following the 2024 presidential election. And this is, of course, we're coming up on January 6th, the one-year anniversary of this insurrection, this attempted coup at the U.S. Capitol, where you had American citizens attack the U.S. Capitol and attack members of Congress and call for the hanging of then Vice President Mike Pence. So this is a very serious situation. We wanted to look into it. We actually have a couple of good stories. One is by our senior editor, Brother Askia Muhammad, writing from Washington, D.C. Excuse me. The other is by Sister Anissa Muhammad, one of our up-and-coming young writers. And it asks the question, excuse me, or it says rather, the U.S. is closer to civil war than we want to believe. And it's interesting because generally, when you talk about fear of a coup or fear of conflict, unrest, generally, those types of questions have been raised when elections have been held in Africa, maybe even the Caribbean and other parts of the world. But in America, it has been presumed, it has been expected that there will be a peaceful transfer of power. But today we have generals, former generals, you can read about it in the story by Sister Anissa, who are saying that because of this whole thing about whether or not the last presidential election was honest or whether it was fixed, because of this narrative that Joe Biden was not really elected, and because you have millions of Americans, millions of Republicans who don't accept Mr. Biden as a legitimate president. The fear is that after the next presidential election, if it's Mr. Trump or a Trump-like candidate, and primarily we're speaking from the Republican side, and if this Trump or Trump-like candidate decides to question the validity of the election, you could even have splintering and factionalism in the U.S. military, all the way from 9-man squads all the way up to divisions and people who are literally in the Pentagon and holding these different high offices. Read the pieces, read both of them. It bears witness to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said in his article this week, right? His article this week is about confusion of people. The minister's article this week, very insightful, very much valuable, very much something we should pay attention to. Because the minister asked the question this week in this article, is America headed towards civil war? Very serious question. So those are, two important pieces, and I think very good writing as well.
Yes, sir. Praise due to Allah. Brother, now this sound, I don't know if it's my sound, but is there a sound in your background? Or are we getting feedback?
Hold on one second.
Okay. Praise due to Allah. Thank you. Of course, once again, you have to make sure that you get the latest edition of the Final Call newspaper, a very powerful paper this week, as always. As we mentioned, this is volume number 41, number 14, January 11th, 2022. And as you can see on the cover, we're coming upon the anniversary of the very tragic event that happened when Biden was given or won the election. And now we're really looking at and discussing what two powerful articles that actually really are both the cover articles in the paper, but very important articles that you make sure that you take a look at. As I always mention, it's important that you make sure that you subscribe to the digital edition of the Final Call newspaper, or subscribe and see the brothers in the street and in the community. Make sure that you are supporting them. So I think we got Brother Naba back right here with us, getting a little drink of water. Praise you to Allah. So yeah, I mean, I know you started jumping in to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's article, as well as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article. But one question I do have for you, of course, as you mentioned, there's two articles. And if you can kind of speak to why did you find the need on this story to actually have those two articles?
Well, we wanted to deal with two things, right? You now have a congressional hearing that is still examining what happened January 6th, a year ago. And they are looking at who's responsible. So this is an investigation. And they're calling witnesses. Other witnesses have refused to testify. They want Mr. Trump to come in. Doesn't look like he's going to cooperate. And there are others who have refused to cooperate in that investigation. So it was important to point out what's happening with that process. Because the other thing about that process is, at the end of the day, who will be held accountable? Now, we know for the people who invaded the Capitol, some of them have already been sentenced. Others of them are awaiting prosecution. Others are still being sought, because you had thousands of people invade the U.S. Capitol, fight with police officers, threaten members of Congress, right? So that's one process, this ongoing investigation by Congress and whatever that will yield. That's one. On the other hand, you have The second story, which is again headlined U.S. closer to civil war than we want to believe. So that is not necessarily talking about this investigative process. It's talking about where is the country headed?
Yes, sir.
What is in the minds of the people, political leaders, military leaders, and others in terms of not that process on Capitol Hill, but how might this thing play out literally in the society?
Praise you to Allah. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that insight. We're going to get to, of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan article, as well as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article. And I'll take this as an opportunity. And I'll be honest, I haven't gotten through the whole paper this week. But one of the things that's important when you look at the paper is that you'll see that those articles, actually, when we get to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's article, when we get to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's article, and as well as other articles in the paper, that it's literally telling a story. And those articles actually complement each other. And I think that that's something that, if you get into it, which I recommend, that you actually get through the whole paper and that you're not just saying, well, I'm going to read the center article or I'm just going to read this article. You actually are being really unjust to yourself. Can you speak to that before we move to the next article? Just kind of what goes into that process of bringing the paper together?
Well, I mean, of course, we're always looking for what are those stories, what are those developments, what are those things that are happening in the country that should be of concern to our people. The minister said some years ago, the final call should be like a watchman on the wall. And we should be looking out for those things that are a potential danger to our people so we could warn, so that we should warn them. The other thing is that we are a bearer of witness to truth, and we are a bearer of witness to the truth of the teachings of the Honorable Muhammad, the 100% truth. And so everything that you see in the paper, in some way or another, is related to what the Honorable Muhammad taught. The minister said to me once that based on what we have from the books of the Honorable Muhammad, from what he has taught, from what the minister has been inspired to speak, but in particular things that the Honorable Muhammad said. The minister said to me on numerous occasions, we have tomorrow's headlines today. So I'm always looking and scanning. And if you actually read some of the headlines of the paper, if you may or may not have noticed, they're often the literal titles of articles taken from the writings of the Honorable Muhammad. So we're one, looking for that which is a danger to our people. Two, we are bearing witness and presenting evidence, if you will, to the truth and the reality of the teachings of the Honorable Muhammad in the day in which we live, and while we must do something for ourselves. We also try to elevate the voices of those who may not be heard. We also want to show the plight of people internationally. We want to expose America's policy globally. We want to take you kind of behind the scenes or give you a different understanding of that based on what you may see if you read the mainstream news. We want to give you different perspectives. We want to give you insight. We want to give you something to think about. So when we are bringing the paper together, it's a combination of all those things that go into what we report on, how we report on it, and why we report on it, and even when we report on it. And of course, you can't ignore things that are happening in the world around you. So we're always looking for things that are happening in the world around us as well.
Praise you to Allah. And I know that's a little step off of what we usually do, but I wanted this year that one of the things that I think is important, and even going to the title of the program, Behind the Final Call Cover Story, is that you're able to read the story, but we want to take advantage of having the editor of the Final Call, Brother Naba, and really get some of that background insight, because he's I won't say it. I'll check with him before, but basically, the paper is what is more than what many of us think it is. So you like they just kind of sit at the paper and they just write some stuff, or they get other people's news, but it's definitely more than that. And if during the pandemic, if you have not been listening or reading the paper, you've really been unjust to yourself, because especially during this time, I've noticed, because I picked up on actually making sure that I was going through the paper, that is actually provide guidance for this day and time, and we shouldn't take that for advantage. But let's keep on moving. Which article? Of course, we're going to end off on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Honorable Muhammad. So where are you taking us now?
Well, I want to go, since you mentioned COVID and you mentioned this day. We got a special section we've been running for some time. And in that section, you will get news, you will get analysis about and guidance in terms of this pandemic and what we should be doing to save ourselves. So that's a very important section of the paper. And every week there's something different, there's something new. This week we've got information about Mr. Fauci, and we've got another story dealing with connecting the exodus, the great black exodus of the 21st century, rather, and this kind of reverse migration and what that means. So it's important for us to be able to get information and analysis and perspective that allows us to see what is happening. So we will be able to make the proper decisions. We got that every week. Sister Ava Muhammad leads section along with a team of those who work with her. We work hand in hand to bring it to you. But read it, but give us feedback. You can go through social media, you can go through our website. Let us know what you think of the article. We'll probably try to post a couple questions and try to get some feedback from you in terms of, for example, what were your favorite stories for 2021? What cover designs did you like? What would you like to see more of? We want to be interactive with you. We have been active on social media. We're going to try to be a little more interactive this year.
Praise you to Allah. Thank you. And I thank those who are logged in, and we want to hear, and we always look forward to your feedback, what your thoughts are with the program. If there's questions that arise, we'll try to take those. So please make sure you take the opportunity and like and share this program right now with your family, friends, and whoever you know that will be able to benefit from it. So I'm keeping it moving. And of course, there's one of the things I've noticed, and you mentioned it, is that there's been a lot of discussion on depopulation that in many instances complemented the articles on COVID-19, the coronavirus, the vaccines. Can you speak a little bit into that? I noticed a lot on depopulation. Why is that important? Or, kind of just what is the backstory behind that?
Yeah. Well, every week almost we get something in that section. Again, it's put together by Sister Ava Muhammad and those who work with her, where they present information about not just what is happening, but the reason behind this whole pandemic and the strategy and the killer vaccines. And so part of that is this literal effort to depopulate the earth. So almost every week they present a number of briefs that deals with that subject matter.
Praise you to Allah. Thank you. And of course, you can see this week's piece, and it is supported, of course, by the Nation of Islam Research Group. And as I flip through, you can see the articles in there. Of course, this was a big one. The conviction on the Epstein sex abuse case, which was, may have been surprising to some that was actually a conviction occurred. And as you see, there's articles dealing with international news. Are there any international news? I know there's several this week that you think it's important that we actually spend a little extra attention on.
Well, I mean, I think our entire international news section is good, but I would say a couple places. One, we need to read about what's happening in Afghanistan. I mean, not Afghanistan. Read about what's happening in, um, man, where did they just come out of? Not Afghanistan. Yeah, Afghanistan. They just came. Oh, I'm sorry. They just came out of Afghanistan. Um, the desperation that is now setting in. What would that mean for the country? What would that mean for the region? The U.S. and others have now held money because they don't want funding to go to the Taliban, but people are suffering. And this is actually the money that is being withheld, actually monies, some of it belongs to Afghan people. So watch this situation. There's a lot of human suffering. There's a lot of desperation. So if people start to flee Afghanistan because of these conditions, and they have, and start going other places, what would that mean for the region? And so you still have a lack of peace. You still have a lack of resolution of problems. But since the U.S. recently pulled out, we wanted to go back and kind of shine the light on what conditions are in Afghanistan now.
Praise the Tullah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you can see, that's one of the things that when you look at the paper is that you're going to get a lot of information and news that you wouldn't normally get. I know that this piece right here, the editorial this week, is a very special, important one to you. A mind to work, a will to build, an example to follow. Can you give us something on that?
Well, this is my editorial, and I think I generally do one around this time of year, probably between December and February. And this is a tribute to our late editor in chief, Abdul Wali Muhammad, who was my mentor, and who was a driving force for putting the final call on a firm foundation. It's been, I guess, about 30 years now since Brother Wali departed this life under suspicious circumstances. We believe that he was poisoned over time, it appears. Um, and I think for me, very often you may see a road named for someone. You may see a school named for someone. But those who go to that school, those who travel that street have no idea what's behind the name of the person who is being honored. So for me, it's important to honor Brother Abdul Wali Muhammad, who was a editor, he was a Muslim minister, he was a very close and devoted aide to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and a believer in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so it's my duty to tell his story. The other thing, frankly, is that I never want his family, his children, to think that he's been forgotten. And so as we look toward the future, we should always pay homage to those who brought us to where we are. None of us get where we are by ourselves. And it's not good if you don't honor those who take you from one point to another. So the final call is now over 40 years old. We thank Allah for that. But this man, Abdul Wali Muhammad, played a very critical role in our development, and we want people to know him. He is not a man that should be forgotten. I see him as one of the great heroes and martyrs of Islam, and an example of what happens when we have a mind to work and we have a determination to build.
All praises are due to Allah. All praises are due to Allah for that. I noticed, and of course, I believe I don't think last week was it seems like been a few year-end reviews over the past few issues of the paper. Can you give us a
Yeah,
little bit from that?
yeah. Well, what we've done the last two editions, we've done the year in review. The previous edition to this, the one that featured on the cover the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. We always like to look back at the year that was, and we like to talk about what can we expect. So we did that last edition, and in this edition we have some additional coverage. Some deals with the relationship between the as the U.S. tries to move in the world, and the world is changing. Those who are vying for power, who are competing with the U.S., notably Russia and China, continue to do so. So we wanted to kind of bring some perspective to that and to put some attention on that, so that as we are watching what goes on in the world, as we are watching what goes on in the world, we are relating it to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught and what the minister has said to us. And when you look, one of the things that you see is the continual decline of America, not just in her domestic politics and lack of national unity and national purpose, but you also see it internationally. And there are now pressures and tensions right now, tensions with China, tensions with Russia. So we should watch these things. We should not be so consumed by, I mean, everybody likes, well, not everybody, it's nothing wrong with sports, there's nothing wrong with these different things that can be a pastime. But we should always strive to be informed. And our pastime should be just that. It should be a pastime, not something that we devote our life to, because we have to understand what is going on in the world in order that we make proper decisions for our life, for our children, and for the future of our people.
Yes, I praise you to of course, coming on time. Of course, the best way I believe that we could end our discussion, of course, is with the most, well, what some could say, or our most important, or two of the most important articles in the paper. And that's, of course, you mentioned it early in the beginning, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and this his article in the paper is confusion of people.
And we're actually literally seeing that today. So this is again an example of having the headlines in advance. So when we look at what needs to be covered in the paper, we are always looking for that which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about what he said that was related to what he has published that bears witness to what we're seeing today. So that's a very important article. We encourage everybody to read it. Then, of course, along with that, we have a very striking article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who asked a very serious question. And that question is America headed for civil war? Now, this is a reprint of, and this article was originally ran some years ago. But when you're dealing with a man who has divine guidance and insight, when he raises a question, it is not just for that moment. The question is raised in that moment so that if you pay attention to the question, the man, and the guidance, he is giving you an understanding of what will happen. He is laying out a roadmap for you that you can take if you want to be successful. So the places that the minister mentioned, there's still conflict in those places, specific places. The kind of tensions in the society that the minister talked about, Those tensions are growing and expanding and are even worse today than they were when he literally wrote this article. And now, is America headed towards civil war? Is not just a question that the minister is asking. This is the question that people at the highest levels of the American government are now asking themselves. Is America headed towards civil war?
Yes, sir. Praise due to Allah. And of course, as you can see, this is reprinted from an article that was originally published in August 31st, 1994. And the article from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad comes from the fall of America. So, man, definitely if you're listening and you're watching what you see in the paper, disregard those years because it's just as relevant. And as Brother Naba said, in some instances, even more relevant and applicable into the day and time that we're living in today.
Yeah, and it becomes more relevant because the time in between when the word was first spoken and the manifestation of that reality has happened. No one would ever have thought that American citizens, this is a year ago, would literally descend on Capitol Hill, the seat of government in the United States, seeking to overthrow a presidential election, seeking to harm, hurt, and even kill their leadership. Remember, a year ago, they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Well, Mike Pence was the vice president of the United States. And many of those people that were in these throngs that were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," likely voted for Mike Pence because he was Donald Trump's running mate in order to become president. Now, if you would have said in 1994, man, you know that white voters it was mainly white voters, are going to be so angry, they're going to invade the U.S. Capitol, they're going to fight police officers. Some police officers are literally going to lose their lives. People would have told you, man, you crazy. That don't happen in America. But the question that was raised in 1994, as conditions continue to develop in the country, that bear witness to the word that is spoken. There's a scripture that says that the divine servant's words do not go forth and come back void. Right?
That's right.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said of the minister, his mouth is not made to speak idle words, IDLE. That means the things that he speaks are of critical importance. Now, this was critically important in 1994 because of the politics that was emerging and what was happening internationally at that time. But since that time, the fractures in the society has grown. The anger in the society has grown. The distrust of government has grown. The passion and the hatred of Americans for Americans has grown. Where you now have people from different political parties not just calling one another opponents, but literally calling each other traitors and enemies. There used to be a saying in the halls of Congress that if one member of Congress really felt that another member was simply an imbecile or a jackass, what they would say was, "My esteemed colleague." They would never use the language that was really in their mind because they felt there was a need to present a certain level of decorum. There was a need to present a particular face to government and leadership and a particular face to the world when it came to what America is. We're not in that day anymore. Not at all. So the divine servant's words that are spoken are not just happenstance. And so when we look at events, we look at things through that lens. And then we seek to find the words that will now bear witness to explain, illuminate that which we feel needs to be understood.
Thank you, Brother Nava. Definitely a lot to reflect on, a lot of insight, as you should expect, as always, from Behind the Final Call cover story. Man, time has flown. We decided this year we wanted to shorten up the show a little bit. We're looking for your feedback on your thoughts on that. I was talking to Brother Nabi. He doesn't like or he thinks the logo is a little old, needs to be updated. I kind of like it. So we want to hear your feedback. He nodded his head like I wasn't supposed to say that. Well, I like the Behind the Final Call cover story, and we're interested in seeing if you would be interested in getting some, some Behind the Final Call cover story swag, a T-shirt maybe, a polo, So we're looking in the comments and definitely be looking for your feedback. Any closing words?
Well, we got a page 2 article, and the headline is "Traitors in the Ranks: Why Targeting Spying on U.S. Groups Seeking Change Never Stops." I'll just say read it. Very important. About a Muslim organization that says they were infiltrated by a Muslim who was working for a group that the organization says is an anti-Muslim hate group. What does that mean? How does that happen? And why is it in a country that always talks about the rights of the individual and human rights and constitutional rights? Why is there always this surveillance? Or as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, why do these people continue to be universal snoopers? So check that out.
Yes, sir.
Follow us on social media. Follow me on social media. Follow Brother Troy on social media as well. And go to finalcall.com and subscribe. Go to finalcall.com and subscribe and check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise due to Allah. Thank you. And I'm putting that right there at the bottom. Thank you all for those who have given us the comments and the feedback. We got Sister Marcella from the crew. Brother Louis, praise due to Allah. Yeah, now it's moving. Sister Katrina, thank you for your support. Somebody like my shirt, Brother Naba. Praise due to Allah. Sister Katrina says she wants some of that Final Call newspaper swag. I'm just saying. Excellent job, brother. The Universal Snooper. Praise due to Allah. Thank you. There's no more Brother Richard. Brother Richard's gone. Excellent work. Praise due to Allah. Thank you all. Before I close out, I do have a few quick notes that I have to pop up on here. Of course, as you can see, please make sure that you support the digital edition of the Final Call newspaper. And just support the brothers when you see them out in the community. Make sure that you support them. And of course, the paper, you're supporting more than just the paper. You're supporting a movement. You're supporting the independent educational system that you have. You have supporting, all of the things that the Nation of Islam is not trying to do, but actually is doing in our communities. And you're helping to support those brothers that you see out there as we strive to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us as the best and only solution, separate from this system. So please make sure you support the brothers that are out pushing the paper and pushing that aspect of the program. But in addition to that, make sure to check out on Friday, come out and support the online study group, and you can subscribe to it at study.noi.org. Go ahead and study.noi.org. If you put your email address in there, you will get the assignment and be able to join us every Friday at 7:30 Central Standard Time. And of course, on Sunday, and I don't have a slide for that one, but make sure you visit noi.org every week, the weekly Sunday broadcast. And as we mentioned earlier in the program, the efforts that have been put into the paper to make sure that you're being kept up to date on what's going on with the coronavirus and the vaccines, make sure that you take the opportunity and visit noi.org/vaccine. noi.org/vaccine. Make sure you check that out. And next time, behind the final call cover story. Assalamu alaikum.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.